This is Brian with ScreenFile.com in review. A few hours ago, I got back from seeing M. Night Shyamalan's Glass. And it's not as terrible as some people say it is. That being said, it's really not good. Now, keep in mind something. I haven't seen Split, which is not necessary to know what's going on with this movie because the connection to Unbreakable happened, from what I've heard, in a stinger. So it's not really that crucial. But that being said, M. Night Shyamalan has had a really interesting career in that you would have thought that he was pretty much done after Lady in the Water, or after Earth, or after The Last Airbender. Yes, he's got a second act, and it started out really good with The Visit. The Visit isn't a great movie, but my God, I like it. To me, The Visit was always very subversive. It took some tropes of the home invasion / horror movie genre and turned them on its head. It really worked for me. I really liked The Visit. I didn't see Split, as I said, though with Glass, hearing it was a sequel to Unbreakable, a movie that was before its time, a superhero movie before superhero movies became really accepted. I expected a lot from this movie, and it underwhelmed. Not because it was a bad movie, not because it was a cheap movie. It cost somewhere in the ballpark of $20 million, if I recall. And that's one of its greatest strengths, by the way. It's not a hugely expensive movie, which is good, because this movie is going to fall off the map really quickly, because it's a problematic movie. And so problematic because it's so boring. This is my biggest gripe against it. It is just so boring. It would not end. And I was almost praying for it to end. It has some interesting points along the way. It's not terrible by any stretch, but my God, it just would not stop. And if you're doing interesting things, I want to see more. Unfortunately, at least to the last half hour or so, Glass does not do anything that's terribly interesting. If you're a fan of Unbreakable, it might be worth seeing. Conversely, if you're a fan of Unbreakable, it might not be worth seeing because it might ruin Unbreakable for you. This is a pretentious movie, even more so than it being boring. For instance, I thought Blade Runner was boring. I thought 2001: A Space Odyssey was boring, frankly, at least until I could get to those movies. But both of those movies offered fantastic vistas, redeeming features that, once you accept them for what they are, you can really enjoy them. Glass is just so pretentious. I thought with The Visit that M. Night Shyamalan had worked out all of his issues of ego and so on. Watching Glass? No, not at all. This movie just is not nearly as clever as it thinks it is, and that's its biggest problem. If it would have just taken the material a little less seriously, I think it would have been a lot more enjoyable. But as it stands, everything is so serious and everything is so weighty, it just doesn't work. Another thing, it reminded me, oddly enough, of Batman v Superman, or pretty much just about anything done by Zack Snyder, in that it's a director who thinks he knows better than you, as opposed to just doing what they do in a competent fashion. Some directors think that they know so much more than the people viewing their movies, and that may be true in some instances. Not in this case. Certainly not in Zack Snyder's case either, but certainly not in this case. This movie is just so pretentious. It's not terrible. Once you see it, you can tell where Chalamet wanted it to go. And that's not a bad place. But my God, it's so full of itself. It would just relax, take a breath, and understand this stuff is not that serious. Unbreakable, sure, was of a similar tone. I would argue that Unbreakable is not as pretentious as Glass, but the tone was similar. But that's the thing, though. At the time that Unbreakable came out, and superhero movies were not only in vogue, but commonplace, I could see that, because you had to try to make people accept the fantastical, that they may not normally be of the mindset to do. So you downplay it. You make it more realistic, more Marvel television, if you will. These days, superhero movies are not only pretty common, they're ranking at the top of the box office. That this movie has to be so solemn and so serious with this subject matter is just ridiculous, ironically enough. So, if you're curious about Glass, I would check it out. It's so pretentious and feels so much longer than it actually is. But it's not a terrible movie, and as I said, it does have its interesting moments. But it's not very good. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Peace.